Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real-Time Enterprise channel on VANTIQ TV, our video and podcast series of interviews with thought leaders and practitioners in digital transformation and the real-time enterprise. My name is Blaine Matthew, and I'm Chief Marketing and Product Officer at VANTIQ. Note that you can reach either myself or the guest by sending a note to realtime@vantic.com, and we will be more than happy to follow up. Joining me today is Neil Cattermull, Director at Frontier Technology, which is a UK-based advisory for current and future technology roadmaps. Neil was formerly an analyst with Compare the Cloud, a tech-savvy creative media agency, and was a director and founder of the Canary Wharf Consultancy. Thanks for the time, Neil. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, thank you very much, Blaine.
I'm sure we will. Now, are there two Neils? I see you, and then I see another you right behind you in an action pose. What's going on there?
Yeah, that's my alter ego.
Okay. Which is the good one?
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay, we'll find out for ourselves when we're doing this. Of course, those on the podcast version can't see the cardboard cutout Neil standing behind the sitting Neil, but take our word for it. He looks pretty good in both. So.
Excellent. I love you too, Blaine.
Yeah, right. So tell us a bit more about yourself and your current company.
Well, Frontier is more of an integrator stroke advisory company that advises small to large cap firms on tech roadmap strategy, right across the board, from applications to tech roadmap with digital transformation to best fit advice at the right place at the right time, really.
Excellent. And how did you get to where you are today? How do you get to be, a guru, an influencer, and somebody that large and small companies call on to advise them?
Oh, a lot of pain, a lot of study, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of traveling, a lot of talking to a lot of people all around the world. And if they listen, obviously, just focus, really. But it's not an easy thing to do. The word influencer is typically overstated now, I've had a deep grounding of tech for all my whole life. And, maybe about 10 years ago, I decided that, tech is good, but I actually enjoy discussing where the tech is best placed and where you can capitalize on it the best way. And for the last 10 years of my life, I've done nothing but travel, talk to people, advise them on what they should do. Sometimes they listen, which is good. And sometimes they don't, so.
Yeah, that's the way of the world. Well, let's dive into something. So you recently wrote an article on LinkedIn called "Time Waits for No Man, Not Even a Developer." What was the core thesis of that article?
Well, it's interesting because, it's one of the events that I went to in the UK about AI and an adoption of AI and the fast uptake of it. I mean, in all reality, it's pretty much still the Wild West out there. And, and developers get a bad rap in all reality. Normally they're seen as they'll develop something really quickly and push it out, and it's buggy and it's not quite ready, and they're working under pretty stressy kind of conditions, And a couple of the presentations I sat through, and one struck a chord for me from Oracle, and it was quite interesting. And it was actually on a code-based point of view. When you look at adaptive intelligence, that's where we need to be. Artificial intelligence is fine. If this precondition here is met, do this, right? So I understand that. And then when we then go one step further, then we're into the realms of machine to machine learning. Now that's even more funky and wacky and out there. But self-healing code, self-autonomous patching code, now that's adaptive intelligence, that's way different from standard AI query-based analytics.
So are you fundamentally saying that you think AI based applications will replace or must replace developers? In other words, developers are moving too slowly.
I think in the future, yeah, I think, to be honest, you know, I mean, you look at the speed up of technology of late over the last 5-6 years, you know, cloud adoption is the norm, never used to be, you know, and now you look at the next logical step is how do we develop to the cloud? Now let's automate that. Let's make that easier. You know, there's no need for, there wouldn't be any skill shortages at that stage. And I saw an example at that event that just blew me away. And I just thought, wow, okay, sorry developers, but your days are numbered, you know, and even to the point of speaking code, you know, you tell a computer to do something and it codes it for you. And I thought, wow, okay.
So you think we're going to be moving toward this nirvana situation where the business side, the LOB owners, will be able to literally dictate their requirements, what the business requirements are, and then the process of writing code to, you know, to execute those requirements will be done, you know, more automatically.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it's like any industry really. You have this boom and expansion and it contracts, and we saw it with cloud. It was a boom, it's a great, and then it's contracting, and now we have maybe half a dozen what I call huge big players in the marketplace, and the rest are just also rans, you know, this commoditized market. You know, I think you'll find that the next level of skills down will be, how do I develop, and what am I doing? How we live in this software world now that if we can automate that, then we automate the generation, the code, and even the code to go into a cloud that's already automated as well. We're going to a far more automated tech environment now, and it's speeding up like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, no, I think that's inevitable, that transition. Well, speaking of transitions, we talk a lot about digital, so-called digital transformation on this podcast and in this video series. What does digital transformation mean to you? And is it really happening?
You know what? About 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, everyone was hailing digital transformation as the next best thing since sliced bread. You know, we're going to do this, and everyone was using the analogy of Kodak and, you know, failed companies that were dominant players in the industry that sat back, didn't move forward, didn't actually progress, you know, and now look where they were, you know. The irony with Kodak in itself is that they decided to create some kind of blockchain environment and its own coin, and then it sold itself for a lot of money because it had the word blockchain in it. The irony of that. But, you know, it's not just about digital transformation. You know, an easy analogy would be to say, I'm going from a publishing house and I'm going digital. Right? That's very simple. But go to somewhere like let me think, one of the recent ones. Look at, for example, pet care. This is an interesting one. Now you go from, how do you even approach one of the most dominant pet care firms in the industry to digital transform? Now you could look at that in so many ways. And yes, you can look at the tech that underpins it. Yeah, let's go digital. Let's be flexible. Let's store stuff and let people access stuff very, very quickly on the move, But that's great. And that's just a tech transition. And what's the business value for that? You know, why would I want to do it? Okay, maybe it brings down my TCO. Okay, let's get that. But what about being a pure transformation? It should be a business transformation. What business objectives that the tech can underpin? Now that could be a myriad of things, but you know, in that particular environment, if you've got, say, 200 pet stores that look after, and healthcare pet stores, you know, how do you look at that and go, wow, how can I digitally transform that? You know, we're not talking about chipping the dogs, you know, and it's checking its heartbeat and whether it needs to come in for a checkup. It's more of what we can do for their business to drive their growth, and also use some of the, not bleeding edge, but the mainstream technology behind that to ensure that happens. And, you know, that's just connectivity, that communication is key, right place, right time, but also on a cultural thing, you know, in a cultural point of view that, you know, I'm not going to say it's ageist, but it's bordering on. We have a generation gap, which the younger generation can adopt the new agile lean tech and the methods of progressing in business, where the older generation find it hard. It's that massive cultural divide, and that's a big thing. Talking about the cultural divide between a millennial and someone like me. Yeah. Luckily, I can understand the tech. Thank God. Right? Yeah. I'm supposed to be an influencer, so I should understand it really. But so it's a cultural thing, technical change. But if you don't have the right business drivers at the top, what is the point?
A lot in there. We actually did a previous podcast about attracting millennials to work in tech companies and how it can be so different to attract and retain and motivate those folks than it was earlier generations. And I think what you're pointing out is that digital business transformation that organizations need to undergo also has to do with some generational shift, right? They're connected to each other. And that's really interesting. I think we talk a lot about how digital transformation is fundamentally a cultural issue, as well as a business issue, as well as a technical issue. And I hadn't actually thought about the cultural issue in terms of the generations, but I think that's a astute observation.
Yeah, we have this. It's interesting because it's something that's quite often overlooked. And the millennials today, they're going to be the influencers and business leaders tomorrow. Now, they have no baggage. They have no history. They know what they know, and they know what they know today. Now, I always say business change comes in cycles. As one generation ages off, and a new generation comes to fruition. And the same with it's like an 8-10 year cycle. And it's an easy business analogy to compare against. Look at financial services. What comes around, like the fall of the banking system back in 2008 and 9, where everyone just oversold stuff to people that shouldn't really have bought it, and then maybe we should do this now. We need to change this, and now we've gone full circle again. Now we're back to another 10 years on. We're now starting to we've made the changes from the mistakes that we've had, and now it's like fashion. It comes back with some certain twists. Yeah. So the core is still the same, but we just fluff up the edges around the corner, around the edges, and go, now that's what I call it. Should be like this. This is how our business model goes forward. If you've got someone very young, without that, and also without the social skill set to pull that off, we're missing a big trick. These guys are not going to be able to perform, or it's really going to be a big culture issue. Interesting. They'd rather text the answer to someone rather than talk to them, and that's the day.
Yeah. Well, you were talking earlier about adaptive intelligence, and we talk a lot about human-machine collaboration, about systems, increasingly intelligent systems, and people working closely together. I wonder if that's another area where the younger generations will have an easier time of accepting a partner or a collaborator that's a machine, so to speak, whether a machine is a literal machine or a software system or not. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny really, because I bought a device at the weekend, an Oculus Go VR headset, mainly to shoot a lot of zombies on the games. I quite enjoy playing games. But actually, it amazed me how far we've come down the virtual reality to mainstream now, and and it's still in its infancy really. But I can live in a virtual world. I mean, quite literally, for 4 hours I was killing zombies and watching documentaries, and with this headset on, just ignoring everyone else around me, and even inviting people in from different countries around the world. We're all playing these games together. Not only that, just meeting up, chatting. And I think, with AI, adaptive intelligence, it becomes more and more prevalent within technology like that. To be honest, we're going to start, everyone's going to be becoming more recluse.
Mm.
You know, we won't have this social development anymore, the social skills that are really needed in business. And the younger generation will take it for granted and say, well, we don't need that anymore. We don't need interactive personal skills. You know, dating will be a thing of the past and that kind of thing, which it is for a lot of the younger generation at the moment. You know.
I wonder what the implications are for businesses that are trying to figure out how to transform themselves. And if, you know, already many companies are becoming sort of distributed organizations where they don't have central offices, they have people working from home. And then now you add on augmented reality and some of those, and virtual reality on top of that. You know, I wonder if organizations, the way they're currently formulated, will even exist 10 or 20 years from now.
Yeah, I think we've got some big shocks coming in the next 10 years. Some of the largest companies in the world won't be here. And, you know, it's having spent many, many years of my life interviewing business owners from small to some of the largest companies in the world. It's very prevalent that a lot of the people within those organizations, there's this big divide. And as the tech is superseding itself bi-monthly, your employees can't keep up. If you're a tech firm, you have to adapt and adapt and adapt. And I hate to say it, and that's an ageist thing really, but a lot of them are not capable of learning a new technology, a new way of thinking for future-proofing their existence in the firm, let alone anything else. And I think you'll find staff will be aged off, you know, and then basically younger staff coming in. That sounds really awful, but I start to see that already. And there's a lot of middle-aged people out of work in the fact that they can't adapt to the technical change.
Yeah, I think there's certainly some truth to that. Although being a gentleman myself, who is certainly not of the Generation X or the younger generations, I think, and you're another example. Obviously, it is possible for people to keep up. And I also think as technology improves, and, you know, we talked about AI and augmented reality, virtual reality, these things, I think it hopefully will become less about people modifying their behavior to adapt to the pace of technology, and more about technology and people, you know, working it out together, right? Technology being an enabler that gets people to accelerate their own development, their own, you know, people can bring their knowledge and wisdom to the game, and the artificially intelligent machines can bring the speed and the multitasking and the stuff that the supposed younger generations are actually good at. You know, maybe that's a more hopeful future.
No, please don't get me wrong, Blaine. I'm not anti-tech in the future, far from it. I think tech has its uses and absolutely wouldn't stop the progress of technology, but in the right way. You know, technology doesn't solve every problem, and if we are trying to get it to solve every problem on the planet, we're going to fail. And typically what we'll end up doing is over-solving problems, and we'll, you know, overcompensate for that, and then we'll have a mass unemployment like you've never seen before. You know.
All right. Well, if technology is not going to solve every problem, then that leaves government. Government will solve all our problems. So they've attempted to solve a lot of our problems recently with GDPR legislation. I know you've been involved in that from the consultancy side. Is GDPR helping, or is it hurting our transition, or slowing down our transition into the future of technology-led innovation?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, in everything, you need regulation, right? If you don't regulate something, it's unregulated, then it's Wild West, and anyone can do whatever they want. And however, if you go over too much in regulation, then it will constrict the growth. And financial services is probably a very good example of that. There is a reason why we regulate banking and have governing bodies like the FCA to control what should be done and the appropriate conduct. And however, you know, if you go too far that way, now GDPR is an interesting subject because we just lived through this the last 3 or 4 months, and it was a 2-year waiting countdown, and it became a bit of a damn squid. And then you had consultancy companies, not me, I might add, that would say, yeah, oh, you know, you're going to get a fine, you're going to get a big fine, you need to do this, this, this. And the confusion that created, because nobody knew, right? So when people tend to get too confused, they just put the fingers in their ears and just hope it will never happen. And I think I would say, and I'd probably get shot for saying it, probably 60–70% of the firms in the UK are going la 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 at the moment.
Really?
Quite sure how to deal with this issue, and the law's passed, and we're already 3 or 4 months down the line. You know, we're all waiting for someone to be the sacrificial lamb to be caught out, and then you have this shock factor that goes, oh no, and everyone knee jerks and overcompensates. Typically, firms don't actually become proactive in a regulatory law. Like they wait until somebody gets prosecuted or fined, and then they'll knee jerk, so they don't want to be the next one. You know.
Very interesting. I haven't seen any actual stats, but that surprises me that you think the number is that high of companies that haven't brought to compliance yet. That shocks me if that's actually the case.
Yeah, I would say that. I would say from the low to mid-tier organisations, large companies have had budgets to step forward and teams of people to run with that regulation amongst many others, you know.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, cool. Well, this is the part where I get to ask you to call bullshit on some aspect of conventional wisdom that you know, most of the market thinks something is X and you actually maybe think it's Y. What would you like to call bullshit on, Neil?
Well, at the risk of upsetting quite a few people,
go for it.
I mean, there's probably quite a few, really, to be honest. Can I have a couple?
Blaine, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, much that I love the word blockchain, something that I understand and articulate quite well, and I've worked alongside other people in an analyst capacity. You know, everyone seems to think that blockchain is a Shangri-La to fix every problem on the planet at the moment, from the plastics in our oceans to the garbage collection from outside our houses to IPR for music distribution, to food distribution, to everything. And it fascinates me because that's one way of looking at it. It's just a concept of infrastructure and how what I call the Napster of old, and it pretty was. It's supposed to be designed for anonymous transactional computations, and now we've re-engineered it to actually be immutable and based on a trust system. Don't get me wrong, I think there's an exceptionally large place in tech for blockchain, but unfortunately it's so overhyped, and a lot of it's bullshit, really, quite literally, and there's lots of people capitalizing on that, you know, and when you look at it inherently, you know, it's not about the infrastructure and the concept of blockchain. What do you do with it? How do I store money? How do I store transactions? And people don't realize that actually it's your digital wallet that actually comes under scrutiny, not the blockchain. They go, oh, there's a few people that, you know, naysayers saying, oh, it's insecure, it's not this. But actually, it's technical infrastructure. It's as secure as you want to make it. But if, you know, I have a wallet today and it's in the back of my trousers, someone can steal it and I get mugged and I run off with it. Exactly the same with the digital equivalent of it, you know. If I don't secure it enough, if I haven't done my pocket up on my back pocket, and that makes it difficult for a pickpocket. Same thing in a digital space. If you don't secure it, someone's going to steal it, right? You've got hackers out there that, you know, from their bedroom don't even have to get out of bed, you know, and make money out of that.
Yep. All right. So calling a little bit of BS on blockchain, and you're not the first to do that on this episodes on this series. So that I think that means something. Did you say you had another one? Did you?
Yeah. You know what, the whole social media aspect. You know, I look at this, and I'm very active on social media, and you know what? It's just that when you become an influencer, you know, you can look at people like Trump, right? He puts a tweet out and everyone reacts massively. Right? And they go, how dare he say this on Twitter? You know, well, you can say what you like, you know, that's the whole point of a platform like that, you know. But then when you start gauging people's interactions and how many impressions they have and what type of influence they have, you know, there's a whole different world, you know, it's a whole complete different world of, okay, I can talk to you on Twitter telling you what a lovely fluffy cat that I've sent a picture to you. And you go, yeah, and you reply, you go, yeah, it's a lovely cat. Yeah, it's long haired. What do you call it? And we'd have this conversation about this cat picture. And that builds up your influence. Mm-hmm. But it does actually build up your influencer in influencing your field. So you'll find that you'll certainly find that I don't send pictures of fluffy cats to anyone, without any doubt, right? Maybe funny pictures, maybe tech funny pictures, and with a tech anecdote. However, you'll find that there are lots of people around saying they're really big tech influencers, but actually influencing what? Mm-hmm. You know, pictures of fluffy cats, gift images that we send each other. The whole gauge and Twitter's analytics and the way that they gauge that influence and other third-party tools, to be honest, I believe is well needed a complete revamp. So people who are influencers, people who know what they're talking about, and people have a voice and opinion, and a valid one, get understood. But the people who just, you know, just want a bit of fame and notoriety shouldn't really be put in that same kind of category.
Interesting. Easy, a little too easy to game the system right now, I guess.
Yeah.
The system.
And people do massage it and play that system like anything else, you know?
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. All right, so to wrap it up, do you have any final words of advice or wisdom for business or technology leaders who are looking to drive their real-time digital transformation?
Yeah, get your checkbook out. It's going to cost. Nothing's for free in this world. So you're going to have to look at the right place, the right time, the right tech. But to be honest, don't believe the hype. Take your case as an individual and don't compare it to anyone else's business. You know, you need to start from within. Look at the change. Get your strategy guys and the people that are driving your business forward today and go, well, okay, let's bring it in-house and work out what we need to do. You don't need to follow the rest of the herd. It's very specific and very individual to you. That's my biggest advice if people are looking to do that business change that uses digital transformation to underpin it. Not all firms need to convert to digital, and that's as simple as that. Yeah. Don't spend money where you don't have to.
That's a good point.
Of course, you can then hire me, obviously, and I'll help you out.
Well, there you go. There you go. Well, thank you, Neil. That wraps it. Thanks so much for joining us today for this great conversation. Those interested in hearing more of Neil's thoughts can follow at Neil Cattermull, that's 2 T's and 2 L's, on Twitter, and also check out his website, frontiertechnology.co.uk, and you can reach out to me anytime at realtime@vantic.com. Neil, again, thanks so much.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Blaine.
If you would like to subscribe to the podcast version of The Real-Time Enterprise, search for The Real-Time Enterprise on iTunes or SoundCloud. And if you are already listening to the podcast version of The Real-Time Enterprise, please leave a rating or comment and let us know how you are enjoying the show.